Hello and welcome to The Last Mixtape. My name is Stephen White, and on this week's show, we look into Kate Bush running up that hill and dissolving gender in music. But first,
You of course had the big hit single Running Up That Hill, taken from the Hounds of Love album. What inspired that song?
That was the first song I wrote when we moved to the country. I think it was perhaps an expression of freedom from the things that I'd felt before. But it's very much about love and the power of love and the frustration of misunderstanding within relationships. And that if a man could become a woman and a woman a man within their relationship, that perhaps they'd understand a bit more about each other.
And that's the deal with God?
Yes.
not my words, but the words of Kate Bush, an artist who defies genre, sound and perspectives in her work, always searching to break new boundaries in the pursuit of art itself. And in her search to empathise and identify with humanity itself, she has come back time and time again into the mainstream. And nowhere is that greater seen in her classic song, Running Up That Hill. This week, we're going to dive into Running Up That Hill, what it means as a song, and how it relates to the world at large in 2026. And how Kate's breaking of boundaries still matters today. Let's dive in. There's something unknowable about Kate Bush. Mysterious, constantly in motion, the 18-year-old bewitched the world, writing one of the greatest songs of the 20th century. The consummate artist who wrapped interpretive dance, theatre and storytelling into a singular sound that at times isolated and enthralled audiences in her era and influences generations to this day. Bush explored identity in her work, never settling on being one person, movement or sound. Nowhere is that more radical or revolutionary than in Running Up That Hill. Taken from Bush's era-defining 1985 album Hounds of Love, Running Up That Hill dissolves the boundaries between man and woman struggling to communicate, seeking to embody one another in the hopes of understanding.
If only could, I'd make a deal with God, and I'd get him to swap our places.
Bush was writing about the seemingly impossible and beautiful act of becoming something else, empathy through transformation. Running Up That Hill is as enigmatic as Bush herself. A song about empathy and love, the distance between men and women, the difficulty of truly knowing another person and imagining what it might mean to swap places. To step fully into someone else's position, not as a passive observer, but instead to actively feel what they feel from their perspective, regardless of gender. Bush doesn't solve the problem of understanding with easy communication. Instead, she explores something far more metaphysical, transformation, to make a deal with God. Running Up That Hill is about a world in which the divide no longer exists.
It's you and me. It's you and me. You won't be unhappy.
Bush's solution is possession, complete erasure of where one's self ends and the other begins. She doesn't want to understand a man externally, she wants to be him and for him to be her simultaneously. The invocation of God here isn't accidental and has mythological precedent in the stories of Iphis and Tereus. What Bush describes is a space where fixed identity used to be. Gender, in this song, is a boundary Kate wants to cross. This is sonically captured in the closing moments of the song, as pitch-affected vocals enter, reaffirming the deal with God, indicating that both positions have now been merged. The music video further explores this melding, using androgynous symbolic choreography, representing equal fluid motion between the masculine and the feminine, while the costume designs deliberately de-emphasise the gender of both Bush and her partner, Michael Hervieux. And that, in 1985, was a radical position, and sadly for many in 2026, still radical. Bush has been doing this her entire career. Take Cloudbusting, Based on Peter Reich's memoir, A Book of Dreams, and also featuring on Hounds of Love, it's told entirely from the perspective of a young boy, watching his father, the controversial psychoanalyst William Reich, be taken away by the American government for his experiments with a weather machine. Bush doesn't observe the story from a third-person narrative. She steps inside Reich's life completely and without distance. In the story, Kate performs as the young Reich himself, inhabiting his feelings as a young boy. The loss, the helplessness, the specific grief of watching a parent disappear into the system, and a generational burden of their dreams. Bush gets there by not pretending to be male, but understanding that the feeling itself has no gender, that grief, powerlessness and love are fluid emotions not bound by gender lines. Even the music video for Cloudbusting features Kate playing the part of Reich as a young boy beside Donald Sutherland as the father, physically transitioning into the performative role. And you can see Bush's pursuit of identity and perspective and fluidity of human experience further in the great song This Woman's Work. One of my favourites of Kate's, and a heartbreaking ballad at that. This Woman's Work writes about childbirth from this perspective of an expectant father. All of the doubt, all of the fears, all the things that he can't express. It even captures toxic masculinity in a great and profound way, something that pushes them back and keeps them from expressing their emotions. It's a powerful song and another example of Kate breaking those boundaries. Now, I can in no way speak for Kate Bush, and she doesn't do many interviews. What made me think of Running Up This Hill was a bit of a serendipitous moment. I was watching a documentary on Kate Bush by the BBC, which is absolutely fantastic. I will link it below, really do watch it. And I was struck about the changing perspectives in that song and that want to swap roles. Why it struck me, because that same day I was reading about Roisin Murphy. Now, I've done a video on Roisin before, and everything I really want to say on the subject is pretty much covered there, but she recently did do a speech and some tweets that I found very interesting. Roisin saying that she's pushing back against cancel culture, although she is being interviewed. So followed up with a tweet where she said that minorities must negotiate with the majority. All of which plays into my previous video. But why did this make me think of Kate? The music of Kate Bush goes against all of that. As I say, I can't speak for Kate as a person, but I can speak for how people interpret it and how it leaves room for everything. Up That Hill sees gender on a spectrum, something that is fluid and can be moved in between, that we can move between those perspectives, even in bodily form, to explore these themes, to see gender not as something that is fixed, something that can be communicated and experienced. The interpretation is that it melds gender lines and shows that they are actual societal boundaries that we've put in place. See why that still resonates. Unlike Roisin, who sees gender as a binary and talks about trans kids as messed up little kids, again watch the video, Kate has a far more exploratory and imaginative look at world at large. Her music does not resign itself to such boundaries because humanity doesn't need to resign itself to such boundaries. Running Up That Hill still resonates decade after decade after decade because it means different things to different people. But that is the whole point of it. These different perspectives, these emotions, even in a song like Cloudbusting, we can explore and see the differences in one another and ourselves. And all of that is up for grabs. I think that's an incredibly positive message, whether or not Kate meant it in the song. And as I say, in her interviews, she says that she wants people to interpret what they want from it. Instead of making a video about Roisin Murphy, I wanted to make something positive and point people towards a positive example of this. I think Running Up That Hill, amongst others, is one of the most positive, striking, and enduring. What makes Running Up That Hill such an enduring piece of work that has crossed generations and culture time and time again is a multitude of factors coming to fruition at the right time. The production is extraordinary. There are few pop vocal performances that come close to this one, and the precision with which the song captures the limits of perspective, the difficulty of fully knowing another person, still feels remarkably modern. But primarily, Running Up That Hill endures because the question at its centre endures. The idea that the distance between people, however we define ourselves, is never as fixed as we imagine, and that understanding one another may require crossing those societal boundaries without judgment. In modern mainstream pop music, Kate Bush was decades ahead of the conversation. In a world where artists like Roisin Murphy become part of an increasingly rigid and contested conversations around identity, Bush's work feels strikingly different because it resists fixed positions altogether. Through songs like Running Up That Hill, Cloudbusting and This Woman's Work, Bush wasn't making political arguments, she was making human ones, understanding that the lines we draw between ourselves are lines we drew and can be redrawn, questioned, crossed and reimagined. How we express ourselves and empathise with one another is not bound by how we label each other. Running Up That Hill's legacy, and why Bush's classic seems to cycle around every decade or so, is because it feels ahead of its time, even at 40 years old. It can be interpreted by an array of communities in ways that speak to them personally and resonate beyond Kate Bush's original writing. The music of Kate Bush imagines that the distance between us may be thinner than we expect or even think, giving space for the human experience across the spectrum, rather than trying to rigidly resolve life into a set of binary answers. In short, Kate Bush and Running Up That Hill explores what it means to be human. From all sides. And so it goes, and there it went. Kate Bush and Running Up That Hill. But what do you think? What do you think of Running Up That Hill itself? What do you think of Kate Bush's search for empathy and identity in her work? How do you think it relates today in relation with artists such as Roisin Murphy, who reject such things? And what does Running Up That Hill mean to you? And as always, if you could like, hype and subscribe, I'd be eternally grateful. Hey, see you next week.
I really like people to hear a song and take from it what they want. But originally it was written as the idea of really swapping a man and a woman, swapping places with each other, just to feel what it was like from the other side.